The Resolute Society, read by the author. Chapter 14, Let Slip the Mutes of War. Frederick sat at his kitchen table with his journal. He wrote as quickly as he could, but was careful to make sure it was legible. He cursed under his breath. This would be so much quicker and more exact if he could just use his word processor. He dared not. Electronic creations of this type were often the victim of electronic prying eyes. He couldn't have that. Not yet, anyway. In any case, he had to get it all down before the trauma of it distorted his memory too much. He turned his thoughts over in his mind, making sure not to leave out a single thing. At the moment he was satisfied with what he had written, he felt something. It was like a gnat bite on the back of his neck. Such a small thing, yet his blood turned to ice. The realization what was coming held him in stasis. A cold sweat broke out on his brow. He felt his insides gurgle and churn. "Hiya, Freddy. What you doing?" A voice came from inside his head. Frederick closed his eyes and forced against the voice. For a wonder, he was able to hide himself for a moment. "Oh, that's good, Frederick. You've learned a new trick. I'm proud of you," the voice tittered, now outside his mind. Frederick was on the verge of panic, but he used his precious few moments to reach under the table and remove a portion of the wood floor. He stuffed the journal inside. It caught on the edge for a moment and he nearly screamed in frustration. He pulled it back and forced it roughly in place before covering it with the board. Then the voice was inside again. "I had hope for you, Freddy. You had so much potential. Hell, that's the first time anyone's ever pushed that hard. Really, more like a puff of breath, but still impressive." "Fuck you," Freddy whispered. "Ooh, kiss your mother with that mouth?" "Oh, I bet you do, right before you give it to her all the ways your dad never could," the voice taunted. "Eat shit, murderer," Frederick said flatly, but without too much conviction. Fear twisted his guts. "Come on, buddy, let's not fight. I'm not angry. Really, I'm proud. None of the rest have opened their minds like you have. In fact, I have a special prize for you. I'm going to show you something amazing. I don't want it, Tom. Please, just let me be. I'll go away. I'll leave tonight. I'll never speak or even think of any of this again." The voice didn't immediately reply. Frederick could feel a build of some sort. The air was getting thicker, heavier, like it might crush him. Then it relented. "How long, Frederick? How long have you known my name? I could look, but let's not waste the evening. A week, maybe. I don't know for sure. It was an accident. Really, it was. I didn't mean to see it, but the res that night was something else. I couldn't help it. Tom, please." Frederick was pleading now. No response came. Frederick breathed out in relief. He didn't feel him anymore. Tom was gone. Holy shit, he was really gone. Maybe he could get out of this after all. Maybe Tom wasn't quite as powerful as everyone believed, but the lights began to flicker. A low rumble of something like a growl, but almost human, weaved through the air. "I want you to meet my pets. They've been absolutely tearing at the walls to see you." Slap, slap, slap. Footfalls inside his apartment. He knew the sound. He had never seen what made them, but had heard them deep in his nightmares. He stood up, but before he could make another move, the lights went out, only for a fraction of a second. But when the lights returned to his eyes, he was surrounded by 3 7-foot-tall humanoid monsters. They were bare-chested. Muscles bulged and veins popped out, making them look like the road map of New Jersey. Their skin was translucent. He could see the blood moving along their veins. He saw the muscle structures, how they fit neatly together. Their arms seemed to be the size of tree trunks. Their hands looked like bird-catching spiders, hairy and clawed at the fingers. This would have been enough to stop his heart with fright, but their faces, by all the gods that anyone ever worshipped in heaven or in hell, their faces, the heads were disproportionately small compared to their bodies. They were bald and had no eyebrows. The skin was pulled back too tight. It pulled their thin lips up and over their teeth. Even with their mouths closed, the bright white teeth, far too large to occupy that head, caught glints of light and almost sparkled. Their faces were set in permanent grins, the grin of the devil welcoming you to oblivion. Worst of all were their eyes, red-rimmed and lifeless gray, yet held all the malice and hatred and contempt for human life. The white swirl turned like a miniature hurricane where the pupils should be. You could feel his soul being pulled into the storm. "You kids don't play too rough now," Tom whispered into Frederick's mind. Unfortunately, it was not the last thing he ever heard, because the next 3 or 4 minutes, Frederick's ears rang with the sound of his own tormented screams that only stopped when his throat became